Kindness. We see it all around us. We see it when someone pays for someone else's coffee or holds the door open for another person. We see it in the smallest of gestures, like a smile or a kind word. But it's different when we turn on the news or social media. Oftentimes, what we hear about, what outlets are pushing, is the opposite of kind. Welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. Our goal is to give you a place to relax, to revel in stories of people who have received or given kindness, a place to inspire and motivate each and every one of us to practice kindness every day. Hello and welcome everybody to the Kindness Matters podcast. I am your host, as always, Mike Rathbun. I have an amazing show for you today because I have an amazing guest. Well, I'll just go ahead and introduce her. Her name is Jessica Eastman-Stewart. Hi, Jessica.
Hello. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Thank you because you're a pretty structured person, I gather.
That's true. Yeah.
Because you own Joyfully Managed Life.
That's right.
Jessica Eastman-Stewart. And, okay. All right. So tell everybody a little bit about what Joyfully Managed Life is.
Yeah. Well, I've realized, as I've gotten older and into my, midlife years, that my purpose in life is to help more people have more joy and ease. And I think that for me, the way I can contribute to that is by helping folks both get organized at work and at home, because I think that contributes to having more ease in life, and also find ways to, build in joy to our lives. And so that's what I do. So I like to create,
more of that.
Yeah. I like to create things that help people do that, like whether it's, figuring out what you want to do in the fall season to have fun and like really deliberately planning that joy, or, getting your email account under control if it's creating a lot of stress for you. So those are the things that I do.
Delete all is not a management tool.
If it doesn't stress you out to do that, then you should just declare email bankruptcy and just say, we're going to start fresh.
Yeah, for sure. But before you started this, before you came to the realization that this was your calling in life, your purpose, you were, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were a nonprofit executive?
That's
that correct?
Right. Yes. So I got to lead a team that was doing education policy advocacy.
Okay.
And it was an amazing experience. And, both helping build the organization that, it was a new organization. So building, all the structures of a new organization.
From the ground up.
Well as, doing all of the, advocacy work to help try to make our schools better for kids.
Wow. And the only reason I ask is because I seem to have hit upon a theme. When I'm looking for guests on kindness, a lot of my guests either currently are or have been in the nonprofit space.
Yeah.
It's probably by design on my part, although in your case, it's not, but, a woman who started a nonprofit to house pregnant or expecting young ladies who were not currently housed. I had a woman who is the outreach director for a battered women's home here in Minnesota, and the guy who's the executive director of an emergency housing homeless shelter here in Anoka County, Minnesota. And the thing is, they were all in some sort of nonprofit for most of their careers. Yeah.
Well, it's not surprising, I think for folks who really care about making the world a better place, nonprofits can be a great way to do that. But it's also important that, you don't have to have your career be tied to necessarily making the world a better place in order to do it.
Right.
And many, I'll just give an example. Let's say if you work for a large corporation, but what you're doing is trying to help, that corporation is doing, real innovation that helps with climate change. That's that's important work. Or you're helping a corporation, the people be better managers within that corporation. That really matters too, because people's manager is a very important part of how, happy they are, so
Absolutely.
people being better managers is important work in the world, so there's lots of ways to do good in the world, and they don't have to be you don't have to be running the local Red Cross in order to feel like you can do good in the world.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not saying that if you're not working in the nonprofit space, that's, you're not a worthy person or something. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I just coincidental that I happen to have people who are in that space on the show. So now most people focus when you do what you do, they usually focus on one or the other, either how to be better management or how to be a better parent. You're like, I can do all of that. I can just boom. You're one-stop shop.
And I think that's because there's so many connections between them, so, whether it is, for example, like I think when running meetings at work or team retreats, like planning deliberately for how you're going to create safe spaces and, welcome people into with, an icebreaker question or those types of things, like the best meeting leaders do that kind of thing. Those kinds of ideas can be brought into how family meals go at home. Instead of just, because if you're more intentional than just saying, okay, how was your day? If you are instead asking your kids like more thoughtful, prepared questions, you might get some more, okay, let's, pull, getting those little conversation cards and pulling them out and saying, okay, would you rather, have no dessert for the rest of your life or, never get to ride your bike again, and like, I just made that up, but you could, asking those kinds of questions, like could get you into some more interesting conversations and create more joy, and just like, checklists at work can make things way more efficient and make sure the balls don't get dropped, because we know that, every time we post a blog or host an event, there's these 13 steps that need to happen with that. The same is true for, hosting things at your house, like I just created a checklist for what things to remember when we're hosting people at our house. And we actually had my son's baseball team over for an end of season party. And, pulling that list out helped me remember all sorts of things like, oh, I should get some sunscreen and set it out for folks if they didn't bring it, and, right, like I should turn on music before everybody gets here. These are things that can easily drop the ball before as you're like scrambling. But that checklist helped me, and it helps me at work to have great checklists too. So lots of the things that apply at work or at home can be brought in and kind of applied across, planning my week at work or having a weekly family meeting. They both accomplish the same thing, getting clear about what's coming up next and who's doing what, Yeah,
absolutely. And speaking of that checklist for having people over, you might want to get that by the time this comes up. You'll only comes out in the late September. Our listeners will only have about 60 days before you start having people over.
That's right.
So you may want to, and I will say this, that your website is absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
And from you put out 2 emails. Is it a monthly and a daily?
That's right. I put out a weekly and a monthly email. That's right.
A weekly and a monthly. Okay. And just on how you can be better organized, better prepared, better person, really. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I love sending those emails. The weekly one is the Friday 5, and it's just 5 kind of tips for life. It's like little life hacks, and like, oh, I got this thing for catching flies, and it's really working. So if you have a fly issue, you should probably get this thing, or did you know that there's unclaimed property? You should go look on this website and see if you have some. You might get some money, or I really read this. I like this book. It was great, or this podcast episode was really good. So I love sharing those types of things. And then the monthly one is actually for leaders at work. It's specifically for managers. And it's just, I do something borrowed, something to pursue, something bold, and something new. So kind of the wedding thing.
You're riffing off the wedding thing.
That's right. But it's just, helping people be better, more effective, and happier managers and leaders of good teams. So that's the monthly one. And I love writing both of those.
And your store.
Yeah.
Now, are those all your products?
Those are, yeah. So those are things that I've created, to help people, mostly because I create them in response to questions I get, and
oh, sure.
So people ask, how do I get my email under control? And I'm like, well, here's my recommendations for you, but I should probably make a little course about how to do that, because I bet a lot of people need to get their email under control,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And so it's great. I love creating things for people.
Speaking of which, and this does not apply to me, but I laughed for a good solid half hour at World's Okayest Mom mug.
Yeah, that's true. I love that mug. Yeah. Because sometimes, you just need to be the world's okayest mom, not the world's best mom.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not super mom. Don't pretend to be. You're the world's okayest mom.
That's right.
I saw a book at a friend's house, and it said, and at first I wasn't quite sure what to think about it. It said, "There are way worse moms than you," was the title of the book. I'm like, I hope he didn't give his wife that for, I didn't have time to read it. I wanted to look through it, but I didn't. That's fine. It's fine. It's all fine.
It's all fine.
And I say that a lot, but probably with your guidance, I could not have to say that so much.
That's right.
So when did you start Joyfully Managed Life?
About a couple years ago. So in the fall of 2021, I had spent, over 11 years at the nonprofit and was just really ready to spend my time on, I was finding myself blogging on the weekends about, work topics and home topics. And I realized I want to see if I can spend more time doing this. And so that's when I started it. And it has been, quite the journey since then, trying all sorts of things, failing at things along the way, and finding, things that do work and help. And I'm having a lot of fun with it.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love people starting businesses for themselves. I have not been in corporate since 2004.
Yeah.
So I talk to people and they're in corporate, and you're talking about managers and meetings and this stuff. And I'm like, I don't have any of that. And I'm not really upset about it.
That's true. Yeah. It's hard to imagine going back into a traditional job. I really enjoy what I do.
But, there are plenty of us still out there.
Totally.
In that environment.
Most people are.
So
yeah.
Yeah. Entrepreneurs are a different breed, aren't we?
That's right.
Not saying it's good, not saying it's bad, just different.
Yeah, it's for some of us. Some folks really like the structure of the job and just, don't want to be responsible for all of it. So, everybody can choose what works for them. But for me, this has been a great fit.
That's perfect. Yeah, I could see how this would be a good fit. Just from talking to you, both on the phone and here today, you're a total mompreneur. Is that a thing?
It is. Yeah.
I think I just made that up. No, I didn't make it up. It is a thing.
Well, you could have made it up, but other people have also made it up. So
trademark. So in the middle of starting up a business, and you got a family of your own. You've got 2 kids, right?
That's right. Yep.
And your husband, but you still managed to find some time to show a little kindness, but there's a reason behind it.
That's right. Yeah.
You knew we were going to get to this. It's a show about kindness.
That's right. Yeah. So my brother passed away unexpectedly, my younger brother, in 2015, and in an accident. And so it was, really unexpected and obviously terrible tragedy. The reality is that most of us are going to deal with losing somebody really close to us during our life. So it's tragic, but also, it actually has been provided comfort to me to realize how I'm not unusual. I'm just human, and that
Yep.
losing people is kind of part of life. And so,
Sadly, it
but
is.
yeah, so about 3 months after he died, it was his birthday, and I wanted to
Oh,
figure out how to remember him in a way that would be, you know, um, really positive. And so I decided to just spend that day, which is July 3rd, doing acts of kindness in honor of him. And, kind of, and we use the hashtag Nick was kind, because that's his
nice.
name, Nick. Because he was really kind, very funny. And, he would have given you the shirt off his back kind of guy. And so since then we've been doing acts of kindness every July 3rd. And, I've got a Facebook group that people have joined, people that, know me, knew Nick, or don't know us, and they've just found it, over time. And so folks join that group and, share their acts of kindness around the year, but mostly on July 3rd as they
Yeah.
do it. But, it's been so fun to see what people do kind of. And it is really just such a fun way to remember Nick, because that day we get to focus on all the kind things that are being done in his memory.
And what a great way to remember somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, so, I mean, all sorts of fun things have been done. I mean, people have, done like, they actually turn it into like a date night. So they're
Oh,
like, we're going to go on a date that night. And the date is all about just going around town and doing acts of kindness. Like what
oh,
a
how
fun
cool.
idea, or we've had, a couple years ago, I specifically asked, everybody that I knew to, if they weren't already, to get on the bone marrow registry,
Oh,
which just requires getting, a little free kit, and you like swab your cheek and they keep that on file. And if you ever pop up as a match for somebody who's, in need of a bone marrow donation, you could do that, which is, a little bit more complicated than donating blood. It does require,
right.
going to the
A little
hospital, but
bit.
it is still a relatively minor thing. It takes a
Sure.
couple days, but it saves somebody's life. And a lot of people signed up to do that, which has been great. We've I usually am doing easy stuff too, throughout that day. Like I'll often pick books that I finished, that I know I'm not going to read again, but have enjoyed, and leave a little note in them, and then just drop them, like, at the little, creamer
The free
station at
library.
Starbucks that says, like,
Oh,
free
okay.
book. And people will, just, hopefully grab it, kids books or adult books, and just a little sign that says free book. And hopefully somebody picks it up and is like, oh, neat, and they get to read a note, in there that I print out about Nick, or pay for the person behind you in the drive-through, or
Sure.
leaving quarters or just a $20 bill at the laundromat to say, with a little note that
Nice.
says, like, hey, here's, laundry's on me today. um,
Oh, that's
uh,
sweet. That's one. That's a new
Lots
one
of
for me.
fun ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was remembering that a friend was at on vacation, and so every time they found one of those elongated penny stations, you know
Oh,
what I
yeah, yeah.
mean, where you put in
Mhm.
quarters and then a penny, and it like stamps it with the location.
Yeah.
They just had a little tape and extra change, and they would just leave 51 cents or whatever it was, with like a little tape nearby, so that if somebody really wanted one and didn't have the change, they, would find it there. Or
There you go.
there's just been so many creative ideas that people have done
I
that's been
was,
lovely.
yeah, your group is really creative. I
Yeah.
love that. I love the date night thing.
Yeah. It's so fun. Um,
That is fun. And
yeah,
all to honor your brother.
that's right. Yeah. So,
What a
um,
perfect way. Go
yeah,
ahead.
it's just great. I mean, if folks are like inspired by this and want some more ideas, there's a couple of other fun ones that have really inspired me. There's one couple who every year on that day, they anonymously pay for ice cream for every person that orders ice cream at their local pool. They are then given the ice cream for free and given a little handout that says, like, your ice cream is paid for in memory of Nick, which is so fun. Let's see, but also people just do things like that. they come upon, I remember somebody
Right.
saying like, hey, I was on a bike ride. There was this broken glass. And I noticed it and avoided it, but I actually decided to stop and clean it up because I didn't
Yeah.
want anybody to break their tire, on this. And so people also just do like just everyday kind things that they couldn't have planned for, but they realize, hey, you know what, let me take a minute and just like make sure that nobody else ends up with a bad day by something that I could easily fix,
Yeah, that's incredibly kind. Doing something that probably nobody saw them do
right.
and will probably never know that glass was there. But
That's right.
how many flat tires or cuts did that person prevent? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Or, donating stuff, going through the closets, picking things to donate. Um, it's and donating to really strategic things. So, for example, my brother liked to play PlayStation. And so he actually, when he died, we had his PlayStation and we were like, how could we like put this to use? And we found a children's hospital that like needed
Oh,
that so that kids could play video games. And so like, figuring out like, especially if you've got something like that, like what is the way that this thing could stop collecting dust and do some good in the world,
yeah.
I think can be really fun. Or like another fun one I did that was easy and low cost was I went and got a bunch of Redbox. It's like that movie rental service that you
Yeah.
can
Oh,
often
yeah,
find
yeah.
outside gas stations and grocery stores. And I just went and printed out like, they're only a couple dollars for like a little gift card. And I would just go tape the gift card to the Redbox machine. So whoever was coming up was like, "Hey, there's a gift card here,"
Free movie.
that I could just leave there. And so, and I'd write a little note like, this is, hashtag Nick was kind. And so if they wanted to, they could go look online and see if they could find our, our group and our story. But, I welcome anybody to, do those acts of kindness on July 3rd and, or any day and use hashtag Nick was kind to connect people. Because I also think that when people, my guess is, and I don't have a lot of evidence of this, my guess is when people are the recipient of these acts of kindness, they probably often are paying it forward, like
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
giving
sure.
them the idea like, oh, that's really nice, and it just,
Kindness ripples.
it
It
really
does. It
does.
ripples like crazy. And you're right. People who are the recipients of kindness, a random act of kindness, whatever it might be, are absolutely more likely to go out and return that kindness or do a kindness of their own. And
Totally.
that's a cool thing about kindness, isn't it? It's a
Yeah,
superpower.
it is. And I shared a lot. I realized I shared a lot of ideas too that also like cost a little bit of money. And I would just say, like leaving quarters or things like that. But honestly, one thing, I'm a bit of an introvert. And so I'm not the kind of person who's out there like talking to everybody that's in the store. And so, but I've pushed myself um, to act on my impulse to say something nice. Like if I think it, then I try to say it. So for example, like, if I'm in Starbucks and I'm like, wow, her hair is really pretty, or like, I really like those shoes, like,
Yeah,
or like, I really, clearly, like, I love how you're talking to your kid, clearly you're a great parent, like if I
yeah,
have an idea of like, wow, I'm like impressed by somebody or think something nice, like, I really try to push myself to say the thing. And never once has it been awkward or weird. Like literally
right.
every time it's like made me feel better about
Yeah,
whatever was going on in my life. So I think too, just like kindness can just be that. It can just be like cute shoes across the street, and make somebody's day because, if you're thinking it, like likely it's going to like put some pep in their step, and make your day feel better.
absolutely. And I have told this story, and if there are people listening who have been listening to all of my podcasts, which I kind of hope they are, but in this particular instance, I kind of hope they're not, because I've told this story a million times. I'm very much like you, especially ever since the pandemic. It's like
Hmm.
I don't go out into public places. I'm forced to get groceries so I can eat,
Right.
but you know, um, and so that kind of turned me into a little bit of an introvert.
Yeah.
But and just like you, and you're doing a great thing. You're doing amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Forcing yourself to do something that you wouldn't ordinarily do. And I did something very similar to what you talked about. My wife and I, it was just before Easter. We were at Walmart. We were grocery shopping, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I saw this woman, and she had on the most brilliant yellow dress. It was absolutely gorgeous. And you could not look at that dress and not, have this big smile plastered on your face. I don't know what possessed me, Jess. I don't. But I walked over to her and I said, I love your dress. It makes me smile. It made me happy. Thank you.
Yeah.
And, that could have gone one of a couple different ways, right? You're like, ooh, get out of my space, creep. Or, and the way it actually did go, she put her hands up to her chest and she said, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And she was so delighted with that. And that is absolutely... That's the definition of kindness, isn't it? You made somebody's day a little bit better.
Totally. Exactly. So, yeah, kindness doesn't need to cost any money or require any pre-planning. It's just acting on your urge to be kind when you have it, So.
For sure. Absolutely. And you are so kind
Thank you.
donating your time today to talk to me. How about that? There's a guy on the news, and I can't tell you which station. Oh, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It might be NBC. And he always ends his broadcast with, thank you for the gift of your time. And I just love that.
Yeah.
So I'm co-opting it.
All right. I like that.
I'm sorry, man. But yeah, I really do. I appreciate the time that you took to come on the show and talk about your amazing business, Joyfully Managed Life. And I'll have multiple links in the show notes as to where we can find you and your services, and you're the okayest mom coffee cup.
That's right. You can get that for yourself.
I could, but I probably won't. But I may get it for somebody else. Our son's significant other, they gave us a grandson last November,
Fun.
I don't know if she'd find the humor in that, or
it's a lot easier when you buy it for yourself if you're a mom.
Yeah.
So but it's
unless you have a really good sense of humor, like apparently you do. So
that's right. Yeah.
Travel it or purchase at your own risk, depending on who you give it to. But all of that stuff will be in the show notes, and I really do appreciate the time that you took to come on and talk about it. And I love. Hashtag
Nick was kind. That's right.
Hashtag Nick was kind. There's a rock garden up here near me, and I might just use that on the back of one of my rocks.
Oh, I love it. Spreading it around the world.
I will do it.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jess. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. What an awesome woman, Jessica's Eastman-Stewart. Jess, because we're like that now. We're buds. I can call her Jess. Is just fantastic. I'm always intrigued by people who are so organized and detail-oriented, probably because I am not either of those things. But yeah, and also kind too. And using her brother's memory to create kind acts is just fantastic in my book. Absolutely love that idea. And you can do that too. Maybe it's your mom or your grandparent or your dad or somebody else who has passed away. Just create a day to do random acts of kindness in their name. And that's a fantastic idea. And that will do it for this episode of the Kindness Matters podcast. I appreciate you. I appreciate the gift of your time for listening. We'll be back again next week. But in the meantime, be that person who roots for others, who tells a stranger that they look amazing, and encourages others to believe in themselves and their dreams. You've been listening to the Kindness Matters podcast. I'm your host, Mike Rathbun. Have a fantastic week.